one of the big differences between the vice president and myself is he supported the terrible war in Iraq, and I helped lead the opposition against it. And not only that, I voted against the very first Gulf War as well. And I think we need a foreign policy which understands who our enemies are, that we don't have to spend more money on the military than the next 10 nations combined. But to answer your question, yeah, I think it is time, after spending many trillions of dollars on these endless wars, which have resulted in more dislocation and mass migrations and pain in that region, it is time to bring our troops home. But unlike Trump, I will not do it through a tweet at 3 o'clock in the morning. I will do it working with the international community, and if it's necessary to negotiate with the Taliban, of course, we will do that. But at the end of the day, we have to rethink the entire war on terror, which has caused so much pain and lost so many lives, not only for our own men and women in the armed forces, but for people in that region as well.
I think it was so important for him to specifically say that we need to rethink our war on terror. The war on terror is what Tulsi Gabbard has recently said she is a hawk on. She says she is a dove on regime change wars, but a hawk on the war against terror. So look, specificity matters. He has been specific about what he's done in the past in order to fight back against wars that we were about to get involved in. And he's clear in stating that the war on terror has been a complete and utter disaster. Complete and utter disaster. And so we're gonna go to the next clip with Biden getting in the mix in just a second, but I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to share your thoughts.
Well, I mean, he's definitely got the history on the issue. I've been trying to get people to focus on him not only as a guy who's great on these issues and is consistently anti-war, but as the only actual leader on these issues that's running for president right now. Some other people have pretty good rhetoric, but he's the only one that got both Democrats and Republicans to invoke the War Powers Act to get us out of the conflict in Yemen. Yeah, Trump vetoed it, but it's been half a century where no one even tried to use it. He was the first to actually get that done. And then when you combine that with the fact that he has voted against these wars, he's been consistent on that for longer than some of the candidates have even been alive. That is huge. And we're focusing here on his commentary about Iraq, but he also, he brought up the plight of the Palestinians. He brought up multiple conflicts. This is a guy who, unlike Joe Biden, he can keep it all in his head, and he balances the concerns of a lot of different groups.
Yes, in fact, you know what? I do want to go to the next clip because he mentioned some of the things that you outlined, and I want you to hear exactly what he said. But before we do, one quick point. He's also the only one up on that stage who called what happened in Bolivia what it is, a military coup. The only one on the stage who called it what it is. And he's the only one on that stage who has consistently voted against increasing the defense spending, okay? So important things to keep in mind.
What you're allowed to do when you're not beholden to those donors.
Yep. Boom, exactly. But he did also talk about our relationship with Iran, Saudi Arabia, and he defended the Palestinians. Take a look.
I think I may have been the first person up here to make it clear that Saudi Arabia not only murdered Khashoggi, but this is a brutal dictatorship which does everything it can to crush democracy, treats women as third-class citizens. And when we rethink our American foreign policy, what we have got to know is that Saudi Arabia is not a reliable ally. We have got to bring Iran and Saudi Arabia together in a room under American leadership and say we are sick and tired of us spending huge amounts of money and human resources because of your conflicts. And by the way, the same thing goes with Israel and the Palestinians. It is no longer good enough for us simply to be pro-Israel. I am pro-Israel, but we must treat the Palestinian people as well with the respect and dignity that they deserve. What is going on in Gaza right now, where youth unemployment is 70 or 80%, is unsustainable. So we need to be rethinking who our allies are around the world, work with the United Nations, and not continue to support brutal dictatorships.
He's talking about accountability,
Yes.
you know, and being accountable, because you and I have talked about this. I grew up first generation Latin in this country, being told that America is this powerful force, that we'll drop a bomb on anybody, we'll fight anybody. We are, you know, we are this unstoppable force. That's what being patriotic is. They indoctrinate you into believing in this war rhetoric that continues to bring us awful things like ISIS, like MS-13, when you destabilize governments, and you wonder why these young children grow up with this anti-American sentiment and want to deliver retribution and revenge. And that's what comes from constantly feeding this war mentality to people and so I'm always going to support somebody that's like, we need to feed peace. It doesn't make us weak, it makes us stronger, because we can go abroad and not worry about our American journalists being murdered. And so for me, I think accountability is such a big thing with the government and with people that are Latinos we've been fed that, because my stepfather came from Cuba, and Castro was such a dictator and such an evil person. So to hear somebody say, well, America will blow them up, instead of figuring out what has caused these conflicts and how do we resolve them, not just here in America, but abroad.
Again, it's one of those things where we're so used to the way to do things, and that's why we've always done it, because we're the tough guys. Anyone who's ever said anything like that, then they go, oh man, you're so weak. You don't trust in America, you don't love our troops. The love for our troops, and you mentioned it earlier too, this is all strung together. Ida's been hitting these points. No, we love our troops when they go off and kill people. We don't love them when they come back home. We don't love them when they have PTSD. We don't love them when they're broke. We don't love them when their families break apart. We don't love them when their legs are not there anymore. We're done with them now. In fact, I forget which candidate said it, probably in the 2012 re-election for Obama. Someone was saying like, well, you know, they signed up for that. If that's not a shove into the garbage of people that we consider the best in our country, but no one calls them out for that. No one says, I thought you supported the troops. What happened to that part? Because they're not sending their sons to be troops.
Right. You know what? But you know, oftentimes we say we don't love them when they come back from war, right? We just dispose of our veterans, and we do it all the time. But in reality, we don't love them when we send them to war in the first place. Because we're not sending them to war for any good reason. We're not doing it in the name of national security. We're not doing it for anything other than business interests in America at this point. I'm not saying that every war, that's the case with every war, but it certainly is over the past several decades. Every time we engage in any type of military action abroad, I mean, we're engaged in military actions that we don't even know about.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's part of the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act gave the executive branch so much power in engaging in military conflict abroad, and that's why we don't know about a lot of the wars that we're engaged in. But I love the fact that he answered in a concise and comprehensive way all the things that we're doing wrong. And Ida, you're absolutely right. You know, when people ask, why do these groups of people abroad hate us so much? It's not because there's anything special about us and they're envious. They hate us because we dropped bombs on their family members. We killed innocent civilians and destabilized the countries that they live in, the regions that they live in. We've backed military coups in Latin American countries for decades now. And so, yeah, they hate us because our military actions, something that we spend so much of our resources on, have destroyed their lives. And so I love the fact that he brought those things up, and we need someone who really does look at the big picture and gives you specific solutions moving forward. Not a bunch of platitudes about, oh, I'm anti-war, I'm against regime change war. Okay, but what does that mean, and how do you differentiate that from the war on terror? That's not good enough. Why hasn't she called what happened in Bolivia a military coup, which is exactly what it is? Why hasn't she condemned what Narendra Modi has done to the Kashmiris? Why? If she's a pro-peace candidate, why hasn't she done those things? I want specificity, she never gives it to us.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, Jayar, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.